It's Nick Moy here, and CISO for Scrut Automation with another episode of Risk Grustlers. And today, I'm joined by Siyavash. He's a Chief Information Security Officer at ShyftLabs. And, it'd be great if you could let the listeners kind of learn a bit more about yourself and introduce yourself.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for having me. The name is Siyavash. I'm the CISO at ShyftLabs, and I've done quite a bit of things in my past career. I've been an entrepreneur. I've been a information security professor at university. I have been a software engineer. I have been in management consulting, and I'm happy to be here.
Great to have you. And I think, I think there's a super interesting conversation to be had on both, I think, on your journey too, and kind of would love to hear a bit about that, especially given your experience coming both from a software development background and now as a CISO, just kind of how that informs how you think about application security for especially smaller companies that, if I'm not mistaken, that like we both now are at much smaller companies than kind of the big ones. So what brought you to security from like being a software developer?
I did my bachelor in software engineering, and I absolutely had no plans to join cybersecurity. None at all.
Like most people.
Yeah. I knew how to write secure code, but that was a personal thing. I was in Singapore at the time, and I was working for a small company. I was a software developer, and I had just been promoted to a senior software developer. And I was doing my first master degree. It was a Master of Technology in Software Engineering at National University of Singapore. So what happened was I received a job offer from KPMG cybersecurity division. And I was like, I don't know what you guys do at.
That's what a lot of people say.
Yeah.
What do you guys do?
What do you guys do? And turned out that they had a project for a very big client that they needed to do source code review for. And that was one thing that I could do. I could read code and find vulnerabilities. So that was how I joined cybersecurity. And I liked it. I liked it a lot. And I thought that I could champion in it. So what happened was I just started with source code review, reading codes, scanning codes, understanding codes. Later on, I just got my certifications for pen testing. I got my hands dirty with vulnerability assessment for networks, for mobiles, Wi-Fi, you name it. And then that was me in cybersecurity full-fledged.
You just couldn't stop.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think going through all that and kind of experiencing all that and on that kind of all these different aspects of application security and just kind of, I like to think of it as a lot of us in this industry don't seem to, kind of start out our careers looking for it. I like to say it found us and it found you. Over and over and over and over again. What do you think about, and I think a lot of our listeners are very interested in understanding kind of, if we're small teams, we care about security, but we don't have big enterprise teams like you're saying that KPMG client would be. Much bigger team, lots of change management, lots of resources. What should smaller teams do or think about when they're trying to do application security at their size?
Well, I think smaller companies can do a lot of things, but the most important one is awareness and training. So when I had just joined cybersecurity, I was like, this doesn't seem to be too hard. Why people are afraid of it? Why everybody thinks that security is hard, that cybersecurity is complicated? Well, if you know the math of it, if you know the science of it, I mean, using the word science is not very accurate here, but if you know the math, then you can actually navigate it. So I always believed that there is a huge gap, and the gap is the developers normally don't know anything about security, and the security engineers technically don't know anything about development. And these two sets of people are trying to work together. So the security engineer is saying something, and the developer is saying something else. And
never happens.
Yeah, exactly. And the problem gets big. So you can make these two sets of people closer to each other by training. I think I use the word awareness. The accurate word is training. So you can teach your developers how to write secure code. You can teach them what it means when we talk about vulnerabilities and what can happen if bad code goes into production. And then these can happen through videos, hands-on labs, or even just exploiting one of the vulnerabilities that have been introduced in their code, and then showing them that, hey, see, look at it. This was a SQL injection. And then from there, you do not have to introduce so many security engineers. You do not have to introduce so many network security engineers, or, I mean, you name it. You can just make your team more and more secure by just making them more aware of what they have to do.
Totally. That makes a lot of sense. And I think even I forget too that sometimes it's something we go to sleep and think about, we wake up and we think about it, but how do we make it more real? I guess what I heard you say is, you need to make it real for your teams that you're working with, like showing them, hey, this is what SQL injection looks like. This is what happens when you don't do input validation. And I think I might have recalled, and I don't know if I recall correctly, you mentioned you had done some teaching as well,
Yeah.
professionally. And so I think it's cool to see that perspective kind of come in, because a lot of, I wouldn't say everyone, but maybe it's just the people who make a lot of noise and take up a lot of space, like to talk about, oh, we're never going to be able to teach them all. Oh, people don't want to learn. They don't care. To me, feels like a silly thing to harp on, because it just means like, well, we should all give up then. It's kind of hopeless. And I think that's great that you've seen it work well, where it's like, hey, if we show them and make it real for them as a developer. And I think actually, especially since you studied computer engineering yourself, and so I think that just makes a lot of sense. What kind of, are there any specific ways that you've found in kind of that training and awareness, not only to introduce the topic, but like to help make it stick for developers who have a lot of things to do? I think they're always thinking about how many sprint points they have, how many things in this sprint they're on the hook
Yeah.
for, and when the sprint is going to come due.
Probably, I would say the best way that it would stick is just showing them how a vulnerability that has been introduced in the code
Yeah.
was exploited. But that's not the only way. I just think that you can also bring other teams into the game and ask them to do a little bit more than what they normally do. For example, we have QA teams. They are the essential people
Yes.
in the SDLC.
Yes.
And what do they test? They test this is given to the system, and this should be coming out of the system. Can we ask them to test a little bit further and check for all of those input validations that the security engineers would test for? So here we are just putting QA engineers between the software engineers and the security engineers. So now the software engineers do not see the bugs in their code as vulnerabilities, as issues. They just find it like another QA finding. And I think you just make it flow more easily in the process. That is how I do it. Especially, we were talking about the smaller companies, those companies that cannot afford to have so many people in their security team, in their DevOps team, in their infrastructure team. You just make sure that people understand each other and they know a little bit more than what they're doing. I give you an example. I remember that we had found a vulnerability in a file upload feature, and the software engineer was insisting that this is not a finding. And the security engineer was insisting that this is a finding because I could upload a malicious file.
Yeah.
And the software engineer was asking, what was that file? I was like, it was a corrupted PDF file. I was like, well, that's not a virus. And I was just listening to them, and I was remembering that the exact same conversation that I had been through with one of my clients when I was working for KPMG. They wouldn't accept that this is a vulnerability.
Yeah.
Eventually, we had to just make sure that the software engineer understand that this is a finding that not necessarily can be solved by them, and this can be solved somewhere else, probably introducing more boxes in the infrastructure so that the file can be scanned before finding its way to the system. And the security engineer also understand that not every vulnerability can be solved in the code. So they should not be that stubborn when when they're talking to each other. So that's why I say that there are a lot of ways. You just have to find the right opportunity
Yeah.
and find your way.
Totally. No, I think that conversation brings back memories. The one that you were listening to, and the one you've been a part of, and the one
Mm,
I've been a part of,
yeah.
where you feel very strongly like this is an issue.
Hmm.
They're like, no, no, it's fine. This is how it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
Corrupt PDF files. It's normal. This is just how the software works. You just don't understand because you're a
Yeah.
security engineer. Well, how would you understand? You're not a software engineer.
Hmm.
Yes, we've all played that game before. No, I think I appreciated what you said about let's basically make it flow better. It's almost sort of like it doesn't need to be adversarial, if especially if we can change sometimes the language we use. Because I think people can get defensive, Software engineers sometimes take pride in their work, whatever their work is. And you telling them, "Oh, you've introduced this mega vulnerable issue into the code base." Kind of like telling them, you just want us to get robbed? Like, are you trying to ruin everyone's lives?" I think people get defensive,
Yep.
right? And then the walls go up, and they're
Yep.
just like, "You're just trying to push me up against the wall and light me up," when it's really you're just saying like, "Hey, this is a bug.
Yeah.
This is a bug, needs to be fixed."
And it won't solve anything. Not only it won't solve anything, but also everything that you have done just before that moment. All of those trainings, all of those awarenesses, all of those
Yeah.
team bondings, they're all ruined. And I just I just think that the secret is for everybody to learn a little bit more than what they are doing and understand the other side of the table.
Yeah, it's like the Japanese sushi chef, Jiro, who dreams of sushi. It's like you just have to do a little more
Yeah.
every day.
Hmm.
And if you do that every day for every month and every year, I mean, you're going to do so much.
Yeah.
And I think if we try to push people and to say like, you have to know everything. You have to know everything I know about vulnerabilities. Otherwise, you're not a good software engineer. It doesn't make any sense.
Exactly.
Just like, because now the software engineer is going to say, well, you don't know anything about programming languages and syntax. Why should I listen to you?
Yeah.
And now we're just, that's fun. I mean, I've never experienced that before.
And then very, very organically, you see that the
Yes.
number of findings are reducing. Like all of those findings that are coming out of your SaaS platform,
Yeah.
all of the uh, input validations that were
Yes.
being raised, all of those, I don't know, low findings,
Mhm.
they're vanishing just because the developers are understanding it and they're
Yeah.
just, when they're writing the code, they just remember that, oh, this is how I should do it. I should parameterize it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's all it takes. And you will go from, I don't know, 100, 150, 200 findings on your first scan to, I don't know, 5, 6 on every new scan that probably are new, or someone has missed something, or a new engineer. And that's beautiful. You just
Yeah.
just feel like that, oh, we are getting there. The organization is
Yes.
learning, the organization is growing.
Yes. No, I mean, it is a real art,
Hmm.
and I think it really requires like the right touch, not just the heavy hand. I think of the security engineer who's like, if I just say it louder, maybe they will understand me
Yeah.
that this is a vulnerability. I don't think it works like that. But
No, no, it doesn't.
I was just thinking then, is there anything like what do you think then is the kind of relationship between, for these teams trying to, doing pragmatic security, they can introduce security training and security awareness and actually work better together on an ongoing basis to kind of reduce these vulnerabilities and help each other more. What do you think is how does that play into like, what do the DevOps teams and SRE teams and the engineering teams? What are the things you hear from them as the relationship starts to get better that they say, hey, like, is there anything you hear from them? Is any pattern or just like anecdotally that they think would help make this process even better?
When you started asking this question,
Yeah.
I thought you wanted to ask me, so is there anything else that we can do more? And I was
Or
thinking
yeah,
about,
I guess
yeah, and
both
I was
that. Yeah.
thinking about, GRC platforms,
Yeah.
um, and how they can help. So we have this concept of automated tests,
Hmm.
continuous monitoring, and you can connect a lot of different platforms and applications to your GRC. I mean, depending what your
Yeah,
GRC
totally.
is, and you can give visibility to everyone over there that, oh, we have S3 buckets that are publicly available, or we have packages in one of our applications that are vulnerable, or I don't know, you name it. And these just surface just because you have automate them through a central platform that almost everybody can see. So that also helps that people don't think, and I say people because probably that's your most important asset in your company.
Yes.
People don't think that a vulnerability is something that crime or anything, and it happens at every
Yeah.
level. It happens at infrastructure level, it happens at organization level, it happens at code level, it happens at CI/CD level, and everybody should try a little bit harder. So yeah, everybody thinks that GRC is for, yeah, go for your certifications. Audit is going to be easier. Um, I don't know, continuous monitoring, check. But I think that no, you can actually bring visibility to your organization by properly using your GRC tools. Well, it goes back to how you have chosen it, your integrations, what platforms you are, your stack, etc. But if you've been wise about every one of these, if you have thought about which stack to choose, then you can probably benefit from your GRC giving visibility to your organization as well.
Totally. And now it's, yeah, no, I think that's great because, I guess kind of, especially based on the last thing we were talking about between the security engineer and the software developer, you're saying it's sort of like the next step is that visibility makes this less of a, these are the issues I see, I look at, and then I just tell you, hey, you have a problem.
Mhm.
And now I can actually share and give the context and make it, because, it's making it relevant in a way that you can kind of appreciate it too. So it's not, I guess we're not gatekeeping this information in this context. We
Yeah.
should be making it available in a relevant way. No.
And the cool thing is, after a while, you see that a project manager from a small team who's working on a small application calls up on their developers, like three of them, and tells them that, hey, there is this finding on Scrut. Please, there is vulnerable
Yeah, yeah.
packages in your application. The security team is not involved, CISO is not
Yeah,
involved,
yeah.
QA team is not involved. It's just because you have given visibility to that project manager and
Yeah.
told him or her that, hey, this is for you to look
Yeah.
at, and this is what makes your application better.
Yeah.
And then the responsibility, the sense of responsibility, it just gets higher. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
No,
the
I,
word to
I
pick
no,
on.
totally.
Yeah,
I think people, when they're empowered, I think they can take ownership.
yeah,
They say, I'm doing this. I can take the step,
exactly.
right? I think it feels a little different when someone stands over your shoulder and says, hey, did you do it?
That will never work.
Are you sure? There's so many people out there still just standing over people's shoulders, yelling at them, saying, like,
Well,
if I yell at this guy louder, I think he's going to understand me.
bonne
No,
chance,
that,
as
yeah,
we're
bon
told.
chance. Exactly, bon chance.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. Yeah, as a translation. I think on a related note, like today and kind of in 2025, we're recording this kind of from Black Hat. What do you think might be missing in the conversation around, kind of application security and smaller teams and kind of NGRC and, kind of this nexus of these things? Is there something you wish there was a little more discussion of or that there isn't?
Well, I think I had not thought about this question before, but I think there is a lot of talking and application development and new systems, probably AI powered, most of them,
Hmm.
that are aggregating a lot of data from a lot of places and showing them to you, and trying to make things a little bit more visible
Yeah.
and easier. But I think that going back to the basics is going to help a lot more than purchasing just another tool. Yeah, I can just connect my multi-cloud infrastructure to a platform that shows TCP packets tracing from one endpoint to the other endpoint, and then tells me Mr. X has done this in the past 48 hours. But I still think that what are the basics of cybersecurity? Your infrastructure should be secure, your
Hmm.
application should be secure, and your data level should also be secure. How do you do that? Where traditionally we did testing. What are the tests we do? We look at the code, we look at the infrastructure, these days, again, code,
No.
and we look at the actual thing, we look at the network. So I don't see much, or maybe I'm wrong, I don't see much new work on how we are managing vulnerability assessment for network or how we are doing. Yeah, I've seen a lot of a big number of new companies that are scanning codes by using Gen AI. But when we were testing some of them, they were missing a very, very simple SQL injection. So I think we just have to go back to the basics and do those things correctly and properly, and just get away from all of the hype that is happening. I was at Black Hat for the past 2 days. It's mostly AI. Everybody's talking about AI. How AI is introducing
Yeah.
new new vulnerabilities and how AI is helping with vulnerabilities. But I just think that, yeah, but are we doing what we're supposed to do properly before thinking about new vulnerabilities or not?
100%. I would agree with your observation from at least what I've heard too, that like no one wants to talk about the basics. No one wants to fix their actual vulnerabilities, even if they knew what the true positives were, and they want to talk about something else. And so I think it's really convenient when we can all talk about something else, and then we don't have to do our jobs and we don't have to go fix the problems that we've already been
Yeah,
responsible for. Because why would anyone want to do that?
exactly.
Let's talk about the new stuff. It's way more interesting. No, and the basics are still there because for me, and I really appreciate your insight on this. Is like AI is just sitting on top of all of these problems already. Like you said, whether you're using this agentic IDE, whether you're using this kind of vibe coding platform, you're using Lovable, Figma Make, whatever, Kiro Dev, you are still using the same code, the same infra, and the same data that
Exactly.
you already had that still had problems, and now they have those problems, and now you're going to go build apps with
Yeah.
those problems, and it's and kind of deploy it and host it on infrastructure
Yeah.
with those problems. And I think the most powerful thing you said was kind of like, or you could go back, empower your teams, give them the right visibility with the right context, and they can actually solve problems. You probably save yourself a lot of hurt.
Yeah.
um
And there's no harm
yeah.
in using more tools, new
No.
tools.
Yeah.
Yeah, but first let's do the essentials.
Yeah.
And then if we need a little bit more, then we can just bring in more.
Totally. No, I think the funny thing is, I saw a statistic. There are 7,300 vendors in our industry right now in cybersecurity. The way I see it, and I'm sure this happens to you, we get pitched all the time. And it's great. I love, and personally, I joined startups because I like problem solving, the urgency of like being a smaller company and the companies that are trying to build and solve problems for us. There are times though where it's clear to me, look, my opinion, that there are just people coming up with new solutions for new problems that don't exist. Because that's easier and more interesting than old problems that have been here, that we say, well, that's not a problem anymore. I actually, this week I've heard people say, oh yeah, this is not going to be a problem. We have AI, and so everything is solved. No, I really appreciate it, and really appreciate you taking the time, Siavash. It's been super great, and
Thanks for having me.
thanks for being on.